So for those of you waiting for a redesign to come to the budget iPads, there is good news because Ross Young tells us we could see a larger display come to future budget iPads. And so let's delve into it, but first, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. And with that being said, let's just talk in. So in case you don't know, Ross Young's a very credible display supply chain source. And so yes, I do think this information is legit. So Ross does not tell us much about this iPad, to be honest, but he says Apple is giving us a slightly larger display for the budget iPads relatively soon. And yeah, that's the main thing I'm not sure about. When are we going to see this larger display launch? Since this tidbit is shared with a report regarding 2023 MacBook Airs, and so I'm assuming this is referring to the 2023 budget iPads, but we could also see a redesign this year instead, since Apple's basically had the same design since 2019. So what exactly can a larger display mean? Well, there are two possibilities. The first one, that's boring but unfortunately is more realistic, is Apple incorporates the 10.5-inch iPad Pro/iPad Air 3 design. So this was actually rumoured to come to the iPad 9 last year because in the past, Apple has given us new designs every 2 years. But for whatever reason, Apple broke that cycle with the iPad 9 and gave us the same design for 3 years in a row. And so yes, I do think there's a very good chance we could see a 10.5-inch panel on this year's iPad. And this won't just be a display increase because the 10.5-inch iPads were also thinner and lighter because, hurrah, there is a laminated panel, so yes, we could see that this year with the budget iPad. And honestly, I could live with the home button design for one more year if Apple gives us a laminated display on the front. Like seriously, that is a massive deal breaker for me with the budget iPads. The air gap between the actual display and the glass on top is way too big, and so removing that would be a major upgrade for this year's iPad. And yes, I know that's way easier to fix, displays that aren't laminated, but I do ultimately think the pros outweigh the cons, and you're getting a much better experience with a panel that's laminated. I mean, especially for those using the Apple Pencil, this is gonna make a massive difference. However, the second possibility that could come out of a larger display on this iPad is, of course, Apple going all out on a complete redesign. So I'm assuming this is what most of you guys want, something that on the front looks like every other iPad in the range. And if Apple was to go down this route, we would also see Apple Pencil 2 support, which is way better since it magnetically attaches on the side of the iPad. Now this would be great and I would be completely on board with this, but this also seems very unlikely because this would instantly cannibalize the iPad Air in the range. Now yes, I know the iPad Air has the M1 chip, and this budget iPad most likely is gonna get the weaker A14 chip. However, do remember that right now with iPad OS 15, M1 is kinda wasted, and you really don't need all that power with the iPad. And so much like many complain about the iPad Air and the Pro being very similar in the range, we're also going to have this iPad that's going to be cheaper but also is going to be very similar to the iPad Air 5. And so yes, I do think this would be a bad idea and would heavily confuse the iPad lineup. And so when can we expect a completely new design for the budget iPads? Well, that depends on the iPad Air getting a new display, because if this got mini LED and maybe 120Hz, that would easily justify the slightly higher price over the budget iPad. And for those wondering what then happens to the iPad Pros, those are going to get OLEDs, which is still better than mini LEDs, so there's a reason to get those over the iPad Air in the range. And well, those OLED iPads won't be launching till 2024, so I do think the budget iPad isn't going to be getting the iPad Pro redesign for a few more years. And especially with Young specifically saying that we're going to see a slightly larger display, I do think that means we're going to see the 10.5-inch redesign for the iPad 10. Anyways, thank you for watching guys, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the vehicle above on details regarding Apple's VR headsets, and on that note I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya peeps.